Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
The life you find is something understood. So there's love,
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means. Today's music is called polyphenia, like quadrophenia, but more. Breath-induced visions and how they can shift our holding patterns. Our guest is an artist and the creator of the vivid dreaming method, Margot Wilson. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We are also a weekly podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Helps the algorithm work in our favor. But most importantly, this podcast could be an opportunity for you to talk to your friends about dreaming. Look for archives of the Dream Journal at Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and also at ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. Okay, I'm just going to share just a quick glimpse of a dream. I had a dream journal nightmare, which, as listeners know, I have fairly frequently. And gosh, didn't even write this one down. What was it? But it's just, there's something about this show that is really intense, and it's very vulnerable to be putting myself out here, and there's always a lot of distractions going on. That's just the nature of life, but in a studio, it's particularly people moving here and there. And it's just bringing in some compassion for myself and what I've chosen to do in this challenging thing that I do every week, and I get so much from it, and yet it's not easy. All right. Well, in the dream, I'll just say I was crawling into a shelf to try to get quiet. I was crawling between two shelves, kind of sticking my whole body, crawling in there, covering my ears because there was all this noise going on. And sometimes I think there's a lot of noise going on inside my head, and that is probably the main thing that distracts me while I'm doing the show. Okay, Margot Wilson is an artist and an independent researcher in meditation, dreaming, and hypnagogic visualization. Hello. She is also the creator of the vivid dreaming method. An astrologer for approaching 40 years, she has a bachelor's and master's of philosophy from the Royal College of Art in Writing and Contemporary Art Practice. Are you there, Margot?
Yes, I'm here. My apologies for that delay. There was a technical glitch.
Oh, not at all. That happened all the time, hence my nightmares about the show. But that's okay. We always find a way to make it work. And even a couple of weeks ago when we had a hurricane took out one of our guests, so he's okay, but he could not call in, we found a way to make it work. So this
excellent.
This show is always an exercise in carrying on. I wanted to mention your webpage, Margot, is creativeforcecoaching.com.
Yes, that's correct. That's where I have information about the vivid dream method and just about my general astrological practice.
Right, because that's one thing that you do quite a bit of it, along with your work, and also the dreaming is astrology. So, but let's talk a little bit about breath-induced dreaming. Now, we're not talking about REM dreams here. We're not talking about sleep dreams. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's breath-induced vivid dreaming.
Okay.
And a number of years back, I took this classification of dreaming, as in vivid dreaming, to the Royal College of Psychiatry here in the UK, also to the Science of Consciousness, which is an American institution, as it happens. Anyway, the idea was to propose situating this vivid dreaming as sitting in between lucid dreaming and REM dreaming.
Okay.
And now the reason for that is that a vivid dream in this context is effectively closer to a hypnagogic or a hypnopompic experience. Now, hypnagogic is when you're falling asleep, and hypnopompic is when you're waking up.
Okay.
And lucid dreaming takes place in and around that space, but vivid dreaming is quite different in how one experiences it.
Okay. So these are visions or dreams that you have during the hypnopompic and the hypnagogic state, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And would you like me to explain a little bit about how it works?
Please, that'd be great.
Okay. So I came into this backwards because I came into it through experimental meditation and breath work that I've been practicing since the 80s. And found that breathing in this particular way produced very strong vivid dreams. And they run in a series, so you tend to get about between 5 and 7 or so in one burst, and they're so vivid that you remember them. And then I taught the technique to a number of people, and I mean hundreds over the years, and everyone had the same experience, with the only exception being people that smoke pot. For some reason that interferes with the dreaming process. So how it works is the breath and sound is directed to the throat region, the throat chakra, let's say, and it's a very intense strong sound with the mouth closed. And what I know now scientifically is that it's activating the vagal, the polyvagal nerves at the side of the neck that run from the brainstem. So this is what releases the burst of dreams. But the reason that it releases this burst of vivid dreams from the amygdala, the back of the brain particularly, is that the posture and the actual cycle of the breathing produces intense states of feeling absolutely stable, but also absolutely relaxed. And so I call it a soma neuro-immersive state, which means that your brain and your body, your brainstem, your nervous system is immersed in an intense, immersive environment long enough that, if you imagine this, it's long enough for that experience to soak into the nervous system. And it does so through, obviously, the spinal cord, the brainstem, and that means that when you dream at night, now we're talking just about regular dreaming.
Okay.
When you dream at night, effectively your brain and nervous system is doing an inventory check. Now, not like files of memories and so on, but whatever holding patterns you're carrying, which shape your behavior and so on. When you sleep, whatever experiences you've had during that circadian cycle will be matched and verified and integrated to either reinforce an existing holding pattern, or if that experience, and we can be speaking about trauma here as well, because this is a positive trauma, you might say, the intensity. If that experience lies in contradiction to a holding pattern, the weaker one will fall away. They both won't stay together. So that is what releases the dreams. That intense neuro-immersive, state, immersion in a state of absolute stability and absolute security is so strong. it then creates the burst of vivid dreams of the holding pattern that is being contradicted and falling away.
Yeah. Why don't you say some more about holding patterns? Like, there's something that we all have, right? And but they often hold us back. Is that what I'm understanding?
We're made up of holding patterns, and can't function without them. So it's our habits, our ability to figure out anything is built on. I mean, effectively, if the brain had to learn everything new for the first time, it would just blow up.
Right.
So
right.
it has to have building blocks so that it can be highly efficacious and it's reductive ultimately, but it can be highly efficacious and organized in concentrating on only knowing what it needs to know, or that lies in contradiction to what it already knows. So meaning that's why you have blind spots and so on, because the brain's just taken for granted that something is okay unless it stands out looking otherwise.
Right.
It needs to do that for efficiency's sake. But the really powerful thing about the vivid dreaming method as a breathing technique, and this was the most surprising part of it, is that you actually only practice the breathing technique for 3 minutes twice a day.
Oh.
And it's extremely important that you don't do it for longer. So that is what I mean about it being a super immersive state. You go into it, you give it all you've got for 3 minutes, and you end up just having about 4 or 5 breath cycles, and then you're out of it. And then you do it again at night. And then you do that over the next coming, let's say, 7 to 10 days. And practically from the first day of doing it, the vivid dreams start coming. And the person who's having the dreams will remember them. There will be fragments, but those fragments of various different dreams are enough then to analyze in a way that allows you then to understand what holding patterns are basically being released by the brain and the nervous system, saying no longer required. These are obsolete and contradictory to my new state of being, which is feeling absolutely secure and strong and stable.
So you're saying that these 3-minute sessions twice a day, you do like one right before you go to sleep and one right after you wake up?
And in an ideal world, that's a great time to catch, but you need to be seated upright, and it needs to be, with great effort in terms of giving it all you've got.
Okay. And so then when you have the vision, so you do the breathing practice for 3 minutes, and then you have the visions, and then you come out and write them down. Is that the idea?
Yes, I recommend. You have them in the night when you're sleeping, so you'll be dreaming at the same time that you're having REM dreams. But these are so strong. Normally, they'll wake you up in the night with a strong feeling of you having a dream, and then either people will write them down, the snippets then, or they'll wait till they wake up in the morning. But you don't tend to have a dead sleep, if you know what I mean. You don't just go to sleep, and it's normally quite an activated night, and then they fade. So they only run for a period of 7 to 10 days, and then the vivid dreaming will stop, and normal REM dreaming will resume.
Okay, if you stop the breathing.
No. It's interesting. It's not that if you stop the breathing, because you could continue doing the breathing, but you won't have any more vivid dreams, and that is because the pressure to that area, to the throat chakra, has done its work. It's done. That's it.
See.
But that's not the only holding patterns you have in your being. That's only one very specific area.
Okay. What was going through my mind? Can you give some examples? Can you, how are vivid dreams different from regular REM dreams? And maybe can you share some examples and how they highlight holding patterns, either you or people that you've worked with? That's 2 different questions. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I can answer that.
Okay.
So so first of all, they're fragments. They're incredibly intense. Now, there's an overlap with REM dreamings to the extent that you'll invariably find yourself, the dreamer will find herself in a house, on a boat, by the sea, you know, in some place. And then there will always be, pretty much, with few exceptions, somebody in the dream. The age of that person in the dream is extremely important.
Okay.
Because the age of the person in the dream, if it's someone familiar to you, will tell you the age of that you establish your holding pattern. So, for example, someone might say, I was in a house, it was my grandmother's house. In the dream, it wasn't my grandmother's house, but I felt it was, and that's all it needs to be, because it was my grandmother's house. And I used to go there, you know, when I was very young. So that will give you an example of the age, but it's not just one dream that does that. There'll be several dreams that will kind of verify the age that is being spoken about. Then we have male or female. Now that is only speaking to the male-female aspects of our psyche. It's not a gender thing. Okay. So in other words, you're taking the archetypes of a masculine, it would lead towards organization and reason, just to use that as an example, using Jung and Freud. If you're looking at the feminine, you're looking more towards intuition. So if there was a predominance of a particular, if this is a theme in these vivid dreams, it would be pointing towards an imbalance in how one is operating in the world, and to dial up the one that is missing. So that would be an action that would be taken following the dreaming.
So
the third one.
Well, the dream is you're in a place and with a sub-person, and then does something tend to happen?
Well, yeah, that would be the dream narrative, okay. And that will be unique to everybody. And usually by the time people finish their dreams, there is normally a burst of being in the toilet a lot. That's always an interesting one. Some people are in cars, and if you're in the front seat or the back seat or you're driving, that's important. Your spatial positioning in the dream, if you're high or low, that's extremely important, because that indicates if the holding pattern is pointing towards becoming aloof and detached, you know, and trying to avoid, being vulnerable and exposed to everyone on the same footing. Or if everyone else is above you and you're below, then there's a kind of inferiority position taken, you know, where the confidence needs to be dialed up. So for that person who's having the dreams, the correction would be for them as a practice would be someone who seems to be below everyone else spatially in the dreams, meaning you're at the bottom of the stairs and everybody else is at the top of the stairs. That would be an example of this. Right. And again, you tend to get repetition in these dreams, so you'll get the same motive coming through over and over in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense, because it's a holding pattern. It's something that's
yes, it's showing itself. Yeah.
So then you mentioned corrections. How do you do like a correcting life? Some kind of correction?
Well, the correction thing is the really exciting part about it. So let's say we've spoken about 7 dreams that you've had, and we've taken a note of all the things that are adding up throughout the dreams that are looking like your spatial position in relationship to yourself and the world, which is your self-esteem. The age of your holding pattern that is on the move at the moment. And then you'll get colours and animals and things that appear in regular dreams, but it's very specific to a holding pattern that is moving, is being shifted through the vivid dreaming. So once we gather that information, and normally that then is agreed and understood by the person who's the dreamer, then I then prescribe, so to speak, or give some bespoke visualizations to undertake in the hypnagogic and hypnopompic state. So for example, the person who is at the bottom of the stairs all the time and everyone else is at the top of the stairs, that person needs to dial up, not feeling, getting on the same level as everybody else. So in this case, and possibly also we had a dream relating to the grandmother's house and so on, and things that were going on. So the visualization would involve some form of movement that adjusts the embodied experience. So in other words, I don't normally make the visualizations literal, but I'm going to say this for the sake of it being simple. The visualization would be climbing to the top of the stairs and standing at the same level as everybody else, and receiving an award or something, or feeling embraced and feeling part of the group, and then all of the group walking down the stairs and coming to the bottom, so that you're on the same level. That's not a real person. That's just an example.
Sure, but it's like using the visualization, the image, or should we say the image of the visualization of the vivid dream, and compensating for what's happening there.
That's right. So you normally do a version of some kind of opposite, or something that sets that to its ideal place. Now, the ideal place is a place of equanimity. It's a Buddhist term, but it means that you're on the same footing as everybody else, right? Because you can equally get the other side of it, which is where you're above everyone else, and it means you've become detached and generally living in your head, and it means that there's a fear of being exposed, and the visualization then would be to bring you from being above everybody else to the same footing, but in a way that felt safe. Mm-hmm. Because at the end goal in all of this is to effectively hardwire in the feeling of having a self-worth that is on the same footing as everybody else.
Okay, right. So this is very interesting that a lot of these themes and motifs do show up in regular dreams as well, regular REM dreams. Have you tried applying these kind of corrections and analysis to regular REM dreams?
No, I did for about yes and then no, because I found that because of the intense activation of the throat chakra, it really, all of the things that are coming up in the vivid dreams will be lurking around in REM dreams. But because you get the succession of them, 7 and 8 dreams at a time, you really get to see a pattern. Whereas in the REM dreams, you won't get enough information and touch points to see a pattern. You'll get a narrative. You'll always get the narrative. Mm-hmm. Okay. And yes, you can extrapolate from the narrative ideas about, you can certainly take intuitively, and you can use the symbolism, but to get more touch points with the relationship with yourself as the dreamer, because everyone in the dream is you ultimately in the vivid dream. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So anyone that's showing up in the dream is telling you your age or your holding pattern. They're not others in this case. In other words, it's not psychoanalysis.
Yeah, okay, but there's the parts of me in the different characters in the dream.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that's a distinction. This is why I then ring-fenced it and said, okay, you have dream analysis drawing upon obviously Freud's and psychoanalysis and Jungian analysis, and then you have traditional and indigenous dreaming symbolism and so on. Spiritual, I mean, it's just everywhere. Dream theory, but this is different because of the extent of the touch points, and that it's playing strongly to tell you where your self-esteem is at.
Right. Okay. All right. This is very interesting. And then you've connected this to the vagus nerve, right? You've talked about how this is some kind of activation of the vagus nerve that the meditation activates. Is that what I understood?
Yes, the vagus nerve is the superhighway, running up and down the side of the spinal cord, and it's active. It's always active because it's your electromagnetic. Electrochemical magnetic information system that feeds all the data from your body to your brain and back and forth. So any yoga and meditation that involves breathing techniques that are expanded, meaning that you're taking very full lungfuls and so on, not just regular breathing, that will always affect that nerve.
Okay, and so that's the part of the goal of the breathing practice, is to activate that vagus nerve.
Yes, it wasn't in the beginning, as I say. It was through research after the practice that I spoke with a psychiatrist and neuroscientist at Harvard. In fact, I spoke to a couple of them there, and between us, the conclusion was that it was polyvagal nerve activation that was causing the vivid dreams.
Okay, so this is wonderful. This is Margot Wilson and her work around the practice of vivid dreaming, and you can find out about Margot at creativeforcecoaching.com. We need to take a short break and do a few programmatic things. But we'll be right back. Margot, so good to have you on the air.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Okay. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. And after the break, I'm gonna ask some more questions about Margot's history and how she got started with this practice, and maybe a little bit about her art as well. Be right back. I'd like to welcome you back to the Dream Journal. So good to be on the air. I want to say hello to our far-flung listeners. We've got local folks: Santa Cruz, Watsonville, San Jose, San Francisco, Sacramento, Los Angeles, La Quinta, California, Ashburn, Virginia, and Emmaus, Pennsylvania. So good to have you on the air listening to us live. Next week, we will have back the artist Victoria Rabinow, who now has a new book out all about creativity and dreaming. We love having Victoria on the show, and we'll welcome her back next week. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook by following #TheDreamJournal. I released information about upcoming shows and announcements when the podcasts drop. You can also follow me by @ExperientialDreamWork on either Instagram or Facebook. I'm trying to get started on LinkedIn, but haven't really got there yet. All right, our guest today is Margot Wilson, and we're talking about vivid dreaming. So, Margot, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you found this. It sounds like you kind of stumbled upon this effect and around a breathing practice. You want to say a little more about that?
Yes, there's two threads to this story, let's say. Now, the first is that in the early 2000s, after many years of pretty advanced and experimental breathing practices and yogic practices in particular, Kundalini yoga, for example, and also all types of meditation. This is when I had the specific experience that I had enough knowledge by that time to know that something had been activated, and then the technique was then developed. But in the 80s, because I'm 61 now, in the 1980s, I suffered from a terribly from bulimia nervosa, and it involved a year in treatment in hospital, and during that time. That is when I learned to breathe my way through what was and is actually today closer to an addiction than an emotional problem. That again I've only really learned recently, and interestingly that the vagal nerves are also linked to the urge to basically purge. And I won't go into too much detail about that, but in that, because it was quite a crippling state, I was in my very, very, very early 20s, it was learning to breathe through the impulse and the compulsion. I then realized that you can do that, and that's why I then went on many, many years of sabbaticals and investigation, looking into just how much you can do with breath, and realized that there's just no limit to what you can do with it in terms of transforming every aspect of who you are, should you wish to.
Right. So learning to breathe through urges, I mean, this is kind of one of the most powerful and most basic spiritual practice that we have, going back thousands of years. And, even and colloquially, people will say, take 5 breaths before you respond, or, take 3 deep breaths. This is something that people teach their kids from time immemorial and try to remember to do themselves.
But and that is true, and absolutely it a basic everyday good practice in breathing can only do good things. However, when you're in the clutches of an extreme imbalance, whereby you're in a frenzy of addictions, or you're not able to sit down and breathe gently and quietly, you have to breathe like your life is depending on it.
Right.
So it's this is why there's a strenuousness and effort in the breathing that takes people who have never had these experiences to a place where they have a feeling of intensity that does this reset. So in other words, the intensity that runs with high level compulsion and addiction it's a counterbalance of that, but then it has a use for everybody. But that's why it's only 3 minutes twice a day, because not everybody needs a huge amount. It's a teaspoon,
Yeah. Right. Well, certainly if this involves deep breathing, then hyperventilation can lead to passing out. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So you wouldn't actually pass out with this because it's not that kind of breathing. As in, you would get hyperventilation. But enough is enough. I mean, that is the thing. It's 3 minutes really does activate it, and more isn't necessary.
Okay. Well, I mean, I take it that you're not interested in teaching us any of the techniques.
Well, I certainly I'm happy to teach groups, to do it. So I'm very happy to do that. In order to do that, it would require it'd have to be over a series of 3 or 4 sessions of half hours. So I think it would be a separate program.
Right.
But it can be done over the period of a week with a half hour a day to talk through what to do and then to analyze the dreams. It's a very simple process.
Right, and then I am starting to understand though that a big part of that is to I don't know, I'm hesitating over the word analyze, but to look through what the vivid dreams are and what they're saying about us, and then how to come up with the way to counteract the holding pattern that we've been stuck in. Yes,
and that's the real distinction. So REM dreams, you're really looking at narrative analysis. So, you're looking for the story, and you're looking as to who's doing what. And if you're seeing your grandmother in your dream, you'll be looking at your relationship probably with your grandmother, and typically in analysing that. In vivid dreams, you do not look at the narrative. You only look at the spatial relations, the ages, and anything that's distinctive about male, female. If it's not distinctive, it doesn't matter. Animals, they cross over into both, and location, whether you're indoors, outdoors, in a plane, that sort of thing, and colours. But you keep the narrative out. And the reason you do that is because narrative reinforces your holding patterns. Your narrative comes out of your holding pattern, and it will always reinforce your holding pattern, because that's what a narrative is.
Oh, that's interesting. The narrative reinforces your holding patterns, and that's what REM happens with REM dreams, is that we're getting reinforced.
It's because it's showing you your holding pattern, but your dream is telling you this is what's coming out of you, so to speak, in that circadian cycle, and obviously they're pretty messy, and they can be pretty all over the place, and quite distressing at times. I do think, I haven't got a lot of evidence of this, but the increased level of satellite activity in space and so on, I have noticed that people are having more and more, intense and very wild dreams.
Well, I think there's quite a bit of solar activity right now because of all the auroras people are seeing, and so people's dreams get stirred up because of that. Is what you're saying?
Yeah. I think I sort of come across, and I'm personally coming to some view that that level of activity is certainly for us today on the planet Earth, driving a lot more dream activity than probably in a much larger scale.
Right, and do you think other kinds of electromagnetic radiation is also affecting our dreams?
Yeah, I think again, it comes down to what your constitution and holding patterns are, because some people it just doesn't touch, and other people they're sensitive. It does touch. So some people would be definitely activated by electromagnetic activity on a very small scale level, and other people it just wouldn't. It would kind of impervious to it. It really is a case by case basis.
Okay. Well, I'm very interested in this concept of the holding pattern, and one of the things that occurs to me is that maybe that's one reason nightmares are so scary, and yet they can be signs of great transformation, because if we're letting go of an existing holding pattern, and our dreams are kind of fighting to keep us in that pattern, but then something is changing, and so we're letting go, it can feel like death. It can feel like the end of the world. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and that's the thing. So the REM dream is, there's some really fascinating points of view now in research, scientific research about this. And one of the positions is that it's a kind of sampling, so that our dream world, REM dreams that I'm talking about very specifically, is where we get to sample the unknown. We can venture into experiences that help us survive, so for example, surviving some nightmares can neurologically and physiologically in some way prepare us for trauma in the real world. Equally, those nightmares can be a replaying of trauma, which that absolutely needs, therapeutic assistance, because that's like the record being stuck, and it's on a loop. So you may or may not have try the vivid dreaming technique for that. Again, you have to do it on a case-by-case basis, really.
Right.
It can do no harm though, because the 3 minutes, honestly, is so little. It is just enough to just trigger a bit of release. It is not going to turn your life upside down.
Okay, so have you worked with people who have repetitive nightmares that are like replaying nightmares? Have you had experience with people? Well, with trauma, I'm sure you've had people who...
Lots of people with trauma, and I assess that, before starting. Someone in the middle of a highly traumatic life experience, it wouldn't be a good time to be doing it. You know, you wouldn't want to be so stressed that you really just can't settle at all. I would use the grounding meditation for that, to just try and get to first base, you know, of feeling life is not out of control.
Right, a sense of safety is a good place to start.
Absolutely, because the whole aim of it is to feel so secure and safe that, you know, that your brain and nervous system can say, oh, I'm actually all is well, so I can stand down, you know, the high alert. You know, there's no need to be on high alert all the time anymore.
And you have some grounding meditations on a YouTube channel, is that right?
They're absolute, yes.
Okay.
And honestly, if your listeners would like to try that, that's for free. You just go on and follow through it, and you will feel the benefit. You may get a bit of dreaming, but the breathing technique that triggers the dreaming isn't in the videos, because I wanted this grounding meditation to be available for anyone. And, you know, it didn't need any preamble, you know, or checking that someone wasn't in a vulnerable state.
Right. So I'll make some link to the YouTube channel on the episode page so folks can check out those grounding meditations. I think that could be valuable for many of us, because there's a lot of stress in the world, and sometimes we need to remind ourselves that there is safety.
Yes, and now on the analysis side of dreams, you know, for REM dreams, that looking at the narrative, because it is your life. You know, you have to be dreaming about your life, so there has to be something to analyze there. Right. And then drawing upon the symbolism, there's no doubt that dream analysis has great effect. You know, with a good, intuitive and well-trained analyst.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I take it you go through cycles of this vivid dreaming practice where you're doing the breathing for a week and a half at a time, and then maybe take.
No, you only do it. Sorry, Catherine. Just to be clear, don't mislead anyone.
Oh yeah,
you
please.
You only do it once.
Oh, only once.
Yeah.
Only, so you do the 3-minute breathing meditation just once?
No, you do the 3 minutes twice a day for a week to 10 days, and then you stop doing it.
Oh.
That's it. Over.
Okay, but surely other things will start to come up, and over months or a year or two, you might be ready for another round of it. But you haven't found that to be the case?
No, because maybe after many years that would, some years that would be the case, because the area that is being physically activated is only the throat area, the throat chakra. Right. Your holding patterns are run throughout your entire body. Right. And this is why yoga involves the entire body. You know, the folding, the bending, going into these angles to compress the organs and so on. So you're to activate other holding patterns, you would go to other areas of the body.
Okay, so but this only applies to the throat area.
Yes, and in Eastern terms and also in astrology, the throat chakra is your voice, it's your self-expression, and ultimately it's critical to how you stand up for yourself. So what you're activating with the breathing technique is that area or that specific, let's say, strand or basket of holding pattern.
Okay. So Margot, we have Max is here in the studio with me, and he has a question for you.
Yes, Margot, hello.
Hello, Max.
Okay, so I've been listening to you, and at the beginning of the hour, I was trying to take notes on it. I have not written so furiously since college.
Thank you.
It's all very fascinating and very intricate. I was wondering, do you have a book on this or something that you've written?
Well, interestingly, it's something I was working on until I switched to really picking up with my art practice, and that's why I was trying to get Harvard on board and also psychiatrists and neuroscientists on board because I wanted to take the technique into a neuroscience environment in a dream lab and say, right, let's create this classification of vivid dreaming, and bring it into the canon of dreaming. And everyone all thought it was great and interesting, but it just wasn't inside their field of research. So I then tried to come at it from another direction and thought, well, I could take it into the research through academic institutions, so philosophy and the humanities. And so far, I haven't really taken it forward there because I've been focusing on other aspects of my art practice, which is durational performance, again, working with breath. So the book is coming is a long way of saying, yes, the book is coming, but it's not, it's not out there yet.
Thank you, Max. That's a good question, because there's a lot of information here, and there's much more we haven't gotten into that we won't have time for. But you mentioned durational performance, and I wonder if you could say, what is that? This is your art form.
Yes, well, durational performance is, in my case, it's a making performance. So, for example, I can make, for hours, make clay figures, using my hands, one after the other. I've also set up a quartet called Breath Quartet, and there I use breathing techniques to hold the space for musicians and dancers to improvise. So I'll be using tantric and kundalini breathing techniques as almost like a percussion instrument, using my body. And the last one we did ran for 4 hours.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a marathon.
Yes, well, I see, going way back to my early history, in my makeup, my holding pattern makeup is the ability to be all in and be in an intense state for long periods. I no longer have any of these, problems. I mean, the treatment that I had for the eating disorder was fantastic and worked. And I certainly haven't now got any addictions or anything. I lead quite a balanced life. But that intensity, the underlying holding patterns of that intensity and that being able to go and go and go, that's still very much part of me.
Okay, well, sometimes these holding patterns have benefits as well. There's things that, as you said at the beginning, that we could not function if we had to create everything from scratch from moment to moment. We really need patterns in a way. And so the holding patterns can be, sounds like what you're saying is holding patterns can be foundational. It's just the question is if they start causing problems in our life.
Yes. So our holding patterns are absolutely our building blocks of the fabric of who we are, and then when we sleep at night and when we dream at night, we normally have about 4 REM cycles a night. When we sleep at night, your brain and nervous system is working on your behalf to keep your holding patterns in place unless you tell it otherwise. And you telling it otherwise is not a mind thing. It has to be a felt thing. It has to be a physical experience. And then that goes into the nighttime, well, normally it is nighttime, you're sleeping and dreaming. And then it will integrate that experience, and that's just how it runs. So it will keep the existing holding patterns in place until your body tells it otherwise.
Okay.
And if you look at that from a trauma point of view, the same thing applies. So at some point, the traumatized body finds it extremely hard to be in any other state other than a state of trauma. But the traumatized body needs to be put into a state of absolute safety for your brain and nervous system to believe it is absolutely safe. It cannot be talked into it. It has to be a totally soma neuro-immersive state.
So you will work with people, you do sessions with folks who want to learn this practice, or do you have workshops? Like, I'm kind of getting to contact information, and what do you have to offer?
Yes, I work with people normally on an individual basis. I'm always happy to run workshops. I tend to show up to a workshop that's organised rather than organise it myself. But it can be taught to everyone. The only people that I've found have problems with it is people that smoke marijuana. And that seems to affect the quality of dreaming. I think it also affects REM. So it's being consistent that if that's the case, they can't remember the dreams.
Okay. Okay, and then so folks, how would you like folks to contact you? Through your webpage? Is that the best place?
Webpage is great, yes, and the forms there for email, so that's fine.
CreativeForceCoaching.com.
Yes.
Okay, and so Margot, this is Margot Wilson again, and I want to say, do you have any final thoughts or encouragements for our listeners?
Yes, and really is the aim of all of these healing modalities for me has to be to have a foundation of feeling strong, safe, and secure, and at the very least on the same footing as everybody else. So not feeling in any way, that you're not on an equal footing. Mm-hmm. And if healing practices and breathing techniques can achieve that, I really do believe we have a better world. So you can breathe your way into that state.
Okay.
Everybody can.
You can breathe your way. Thank you so much, Margot Wilson. So glad to have you on the air.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
All right, take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Well, thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We stream at ksqd.org, and you're welcome to listen in to hear what goes on behind the scenes, and you also can call in live if you're listening live. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. Please contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show, to promote a new book, or to tell folks about your dream-related offerings. I'm Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. Email me at catherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows. I'd like to thank Rick Calefo and Tony Russimano, and let you know the intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
Where